Okay, so according to the clock, it's 3:41, and because it's 3:41, I guess I have about 19 minutes before I need to go in for the appointment, which means I can probably, because there's a timer on the video, I can probably go for like 15 minutes before I turn it off and go and do other stuff. So I have not made a video in a while, and I'm sorry for that. When you set up a multi-part series saying, hey, this is part one of whatever about how I got my name, you kind of have to, finish it and then eventually make a part two. And I had vlogger's block, I suppose, because I kept trying to make the video and getting like 5 minutes in and realizing, oh, I don't know what I'm gonna say next. And that sort of problem was with me on the other videos too. The ones that I already made and uploaded in my bedroom. There are pauses in there, there's sort of awkward misdirections and digressions and tangents. But with trying to make video number 2 in the series on how I got my name, it was even worse. It was brutal. I just couldn't get it down. And I tried writing a script and I couldn't figure out the script. It was writer's block, it was vlogger's block, it was a whole big mess. So honestly, the main reason I'm making this thing right now is because I've got time to spare, and because I feel guilty about not being able to follow through on the project that I sort of committed to, and because I think I might have something that would either help the narrative or just be an interesting personal note, maybe a little bit of both. So this is a digression. It wouldn't be video 2 in the series, it would be video 1.5, I guess, sort of to give context to other things. Now, this is not a video intended specifically for anyone. This is for posterity's sake. If you're interested in the channel at all, I think you'll get something out of it. I'm hoping this will be worthwhile. But I do know or strongly suspect that 2 people in particular will be viewing this. It's possible that because I'm talking about I'm speaking of Dave and Shannon from the Dave Superpowers channel. And y'all, you can completely ignore this video if you want. I will be talking pretty directly, actually, about how I think reasons and values work, and that might throw you, that might annoy you if you have already come to a conclusion about my type and you think I'm talking about something I know nothing about. But whatever. Everyone else who's not part of that little sub-interest, I think you'll still get something out of this. I think this is still going to be valuable. So here we go. So a lot of people think of values as something that's created, and others think of it as something that's discovered. To some, the only thing that matters is what matters to you. To others, to me, it works a little bit differently. So I think at the end of the day, everyone values truth, goodness, and beauty, which are hard to define. Truth, I guess the definition is basically built into it. We know what we mean by truth, even if we can't exactly word it right. With beauty, that's a little bit more difficult. With goodness, that's basically, we like seeing other people's lives improve, and we like seeing our own lives improve, and what's good is what does that. Beauty is something different. It's a little bit more complex. It's based at least somewhat on a sense of aesthetics, on an overlap between the true and the good, sort of a perception that this makes our lives better in some way. But even then, better itself, here's the thing. It's very difficult to define truth, goodness, and beauty in ways that are not circular. And I'll be honest about that. Any definition I come up with for these terms is going to be circular. I hate undefined terms, really hate them, but that's something we got to deal with when it comes to truth, goodness, and beauty. But I think even without a proper definition, we might still be able to have a valuable conversation or lecture on it or whatever. So here's where I'm going with this. I think that everything real is good and beautiful in some way or another. And that the reason we have disagreements is because of our backgrounds, because of our minds, because of what we have learned and what we are able to learn from that, we see different sides of that beauty. It's like a book with 1 trillion pages, and everyone is allowed to see only one page of that book, and no one else gets to see the same page. But there's something true and good and beautiful written on every page in there. So I guess the main reason I'm bringing this up is because, well, I tend to get in, not as much anymore, but there are ways in which I get sort of defensive about things that I think are good and true and beautiful. This exists in two sort of fields. It pops up in, like, my opinions on art and entertainment. It pops up in my opinions on, questions of morality and right and wrong. Everyone has disagreements there. Everyone has arguments there. But for me, it feels kind of different. Like, if I love something or I care about something, it's because I've seen some kind of good or beautiful property in it. Like frickin' trees. Everyone likes, nature. Everyone thinks that forests and stuff are pretty. And it's hard to break down why. I guess part of it is simply the exact shade of green, the shade, the way that when you look into a little trail like that, you get the sense that there's something vast and unexplored there that could go anywhere. There's like a trail or something. There's something mysterious about forests. There's something, I don't know, refreshing just about the fact that everything around you is alive and you know it's alive. There's the knowledge in the background that it's, things like trees that produce the oxygen you breathe and keep you alive. And all these little aesthetic things come together, not even in a conscious way. I think this is all going on in the background. I think there's some emotions convey information. I don't know if you've seen Inside Out, but yeah, emotions convey information. They are, in a sense, just like thought. They're less explicit is the thing. They're not at the forefront of your consciousness. They're not something you can parse into words. They're stuff you know on a deeper level. Like when I'm out here looking at these trails or whatever and walking around, I think I do like it because of all this stuff I talked about. But it's not like I am arguing with myself going, okay, I'm going to deduce why I love this tree. I'm just out there and I like it. I still have all those reasons for liking it. I don't feel like I need to explain them to myself. And other times, I do. I think there's a sliding scale of how much explanation you need. Some things like, favorite foods or just walks through little places like this, or other stuff, or favorite music. Sometimes you don't know why you like it. Sometimes you have you can like write freaking novels on why you like it. Okay, these are all of the little sort of poetic themes that show up in this Bob Dylan song. There's a sliding scale of how explicit you can make it or not make it. And I actually really like being able to dig into things and make sort of what I implicitly love more explicit. I feel like that makes it richer somehow. But sometimes, you know, someone else is not going to feel the same way. They're going to go into this sort of thing and be like, this is not a pleasant walk because it's ridiculously hot out. It's humid because it's Texas and it's been raining and it's the summer. Well, technically not. Technically, yes, because fall starts on the 20th. But, and of course the response to that is, you know, well, yeah, it is hot, it is humid, it is unpleasant. If you walk around outside for too long without drinking water, you'll get dehydrated and sick. So yeah, there's beautiful things about this little trail and not so good things about this little trail. And so it's a mixed bag, like most things in life are mixed bags, and of course differences in enjoyment exist because, well, different priorities exist. Maybe you're better hydrated than the other person, or your imagination from your childhood associates forest with adventure more than theirs does. There's just different weights we assign to all the, you know, good or bad properties of that tiny little forest, which is more actually just like a span of trees between one street and another, but you know what I mean. And so when someone else dislikes something I like or vice versa, and I can sort of, it won't necessarily always bother me because I can respect that difference. What does bother me is if someone, when they are talking about the forest or whatever, basically says that it does not have the characteristics I liked about it. Like if I were like, okay, so it's a lovely source of shade, and then they're like, no, it's not. That the sun can clearly still come through between little gaps in the leaves, and that's uncomfortable, you're an idiot. Then I actually get really, really upset, because then they're saying that the thing I did like about it was not real, or that it did not have that property. Now, a lot of people are going to come into this and be like, well, you can still like it anyway. And some people who do argue with you will say like, well, actually the forest isn't like that or doesn't have those traits or whatever, but you can still like it anyway. I'm not telling you can't. Well, you kind of are. I liked it because of these things. If it does not have those things, then I no longer really have permission to like it. And I get into a lot of arguments that way that seem very random and confusing at the time. Like, I almost don't know why I feel the need to argue with people and convince them about stuff like that. To the extent that I do, it's not a very common thing. It's kind of weird. I'm so sorry. I'm going to step back outside for a second. Too much echo in there, but at the same time, it just started raining, so I'll kind of... Luckily, I'm under this little awning, but... So honestly, the main reason I'm going into this isn't necessarily for the two people who are trying to personality type me. It's not even necessarily autobiographical. It's just to give context for things. Because I think if I ever am able to get disciplined enough to make the part 2 that I keep putting off and off and off and off and off, it's going to touch on this. Because it's going to touch on different philosophical ideas like solipsism and nihilism that, if I did believe them, would undercut literally every reason I have for caring about things and basically remove my right to care. Part 2 is basically going to be about my defensiveness. I can get really defensive sometimes for reasons I don't understand. And over the years, I've slowly been able to piece together exactly what makes me act that way, with a little bit of difficulty, but I think I've got hints of it. And the reason that matters is because that sort of value-based and ideology-based defensiveness made it nearly impossible for me to accept that I was trans. But of course, we'll get to that later. 16 minutes, I probably need to go in, so I'm going to pause the video, maybe upload it later tonight. Bye!